Welcome to my channel, where every story comes to life. Let's dive into a new one. David sat quietly in the expansive living room, his chair positioned at the far end of the long mahogany table. His hands rested on its cool surface, his mind heavy with thoughts. He had just returned from a grueling day at the architecture firm, where he had stayed late to finalize intricate designs for a luxury hotel in New York. The workload itself didn't faze him. It was something he'd grown accustomed to, but an unsettling weight had followed him home over the past few weeks, making the air feel heavier with every passing day. He glanced at the clock. 10:30 p.m. Emma was late again. Emma, his wife of 6 years, usually called or texted when she was running behind. Her messages, always sweet and endearing, would brighten his evenings. "I can't wait to see you tonight." But recently, her communication had dwindled to sporadic updates, and her reasons for being late felt forced, like lines rehearsed for a performance. David brushed off the jealousy creeping into his thoughts. He'd always prided himself on being trusting and rational, but tonight, there was no denying the signs. Emma had been dressing up more often, choosing outfits and perfumes she reserved for their dates. She checked her phone frequently, her expression softening as she read messages she didn't share with him. The door creaked open, breaking his train of thought. Emma stepped inside, her high heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Her makeup was flawless, her hair carefully styled, and she wore the green dress David had always admired. But tonight, it wasn't for him. "Hey!" she greeted nonchalantly, tossing her keys onto the tray by the door. "Long day at work. We had a client breathing down our necks, so we had to get everything wrapped up tonight." David forced a smile, but his chest tightened as a faint, unfamiliar cologne lingered in the air. "Another late night, huh?" he said, his tone light but edged with curiosity. Emma shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "You know how it is." He wanted to push further, but her detached demeanor held him back. David had never been the type to interrogate, and he didn't want to become the jealous husband he'd always sworn he wouldn't be. But this felt different. The distance between them wasn't just in her words. It was in her touch, her smile, and her absence even when she was near. Rising from his seat, David crossed the room to face her. "Emma," he began softly, "you've been working late a lot lately." For a moment, she froze. Her lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. Instead, her gaze dropped to the floor, her face painted with guilt. And just like that, David's worst fears were confirmed. The ache in his chest was overwhelming. Part relief that he wasn't imagining the shift between them, part devastation that the woman he loved had betrayed his trust. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma hesitated before answering, her voice trembling. "A few months." David inhaled sharply, his fists clenching at his sides. "So, Ryan," he said bitterly, "he reached out, and you just let everything we built go?" "It wasn't like that," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't plan for any of this to happen. It just did." David's laugh was hollow, devoid of warmth. "Things like this don't just happen, Emma. You made a choice, and now we both have to live with it." The days that followed were a blur. Emma moved out, taking only the essentials. Their once vibrant home now echoed with silence, every corner a painful reminder of what had been. Despite the anguish, David knew he had to move forward. Rebuilding his life wouldn't be easy, but staying in the shadow of her betrayal was not an option. Meanwhile, Emma moved in with Ryan. Mutual friends told David they seemed happy, as if their affair had blossomed into a fairy tale. They were planning a wedding, a future that David once thought was his. The pain was unbearable, but he focused on healing, slowly piecing himself back together. Then, a month later, something unexpected happened. David's phone rang, breaking the quiet evening. He hesitated before answering. "Hello." On the other end, Emma's voice trembled. "David, I need to talk to you." His chest tightened. He hadn't spoken to her since the day she left. He had tried to bury the memories and focus on himself, but the desperation in her voice held him in place. "What is it, Emma?" he asked cautiously. "It's Ryan," she said, her voice shaky. He canceled the wedding." David blinked, struggling to process her words. "He what?" Emma let out a shaky breath. "He called everything off. He said he thinks we made a mistake," Emma finished, her voice barely audible. David sat in silence, the weight of her words hanging between them. He felt a mix of emotions, confusion, anger, and a flicker of something he didn't want to name. "What do you want me to say, Emma?" he asked finally, his tone steady but cold. "I don't know," she admitted. I don't know who else to talk to." David clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to lash out. "She left me. She chose someone else. And now she wants me to be her comfort?" "Emma," he said, exhaling slowly, "you made your choice. You left. I'm not sure what you're expecting from me." "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. She paused, her voice trembling again. "I feel like I've lost everything. I don't know where to go from here." David stared at the floor, his thoughts racing. Part of him wanted to shut her out completely, to hang up and continue rebuilding his life without the ghost of her betrayal haunting him. But another part, the part that still remembered the love they had shared, hesitated. "You'll figure it out," he said at last, his voice firm but not unkind. "Just like I had to." There was silence on the other end, and for a moment, David thought she had hung up. Then he heard her soft sobs. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, "for everything. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it." David closed his eyes, letting her words wash over him. He didn't respond. Apologies couldn't undo the damage, and he wasn't ready to forgive. "Take care of yourself, Emma," he said finally. "Goodbye." He ended the call before she could respond, his heart heavy but resolute. As he sat there, the quiet of the room seemed less oppressive than it had before. For the first time in weeks, David felt a sense of closure. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew this was his chance to truly move on. Emma's chapter in his life was over, and it was time to start writing a new one, this time on his own terms.